here in New Mexico.
He looks like someone who would talk about tumbleweeds.
Tumbleweeds in the middle of a desert? Not exactly a shocking sight to see, except for, you know, when the wind puts them everywhere but in the middle of the desert. Like,
oh my God, they fly!
Our tumbleweed problem is even going viral on platforms like TikTok. And it's not just homes and buildings dealing with the invasion.
What the fuck?
Think about the craziest thing you've experienced when you're driving. Probably pretty bad potholes, especially here in our state, come to mind.
Or chances are you've even had a ride.
God damn. This anchor woman on the right is built like a fucking Nickelodeon cartoon mother. Holy shit. I got distracted for a second.
Hit your windshield and crack it. That's where the whole tumbleweed issue comes back around, though. Tamara Lopez is here now. Tamara, we have enough to worry about on our New Mexico roads. Now we're apparently adding these tumbleweeds to the list.
Show me more weed!
Yeah, Julie, that's right. And at most, you'd probably just be worried about getting them stuck under your car. But
they're so light and fluffy. We just watch them get carried away by the wind. How do they damage a windshield?
Driver is now self-proclaiming herself a tumbleweed hater, and for a pretty good reason.
I just don't like them tumbleweeds. They come over here, they tumble across our roads. They ain't no paying their taxes. I just don't like them. Get them out.
Mother Nature goes in and throws a lot of stuff at us with the heavy winds.
David McGinnis has been teaching the Metro to drive for almost 50 years at the McGinnis Driver Safety Center. And he's seen it all, even things like this. A viewer sent us photos of damage to their windshield.
But we don't get the video? We don't get to see the impact? Yeah, I'm gonna press X, man. I don't believe him.
City to city here in New Mexico, all of a sudden that big old tumbleweed just blows out.
The viewer said it was a tumbleweed, and you can even still see the root lodged in the glass. David says this is actually pretty common.
McGinnis says the damage is usually caused by the stems of the tumbleweeds, especially when they're getting tossed around by high winds.
So what do you do if you see a massive tumbleweed flying toward you in the car?
You have to go ahead and try to, you know, really have, you know, that, you know, little thought pattern in your mind about, now, if something would happen here, what would I do? Would I go off a cliff or hit into a parked car? Or do I have to run over sometimes maybe an animal?
I feel like if you have to choose between careening off a cliff and letting a tumbleweed hit your windshield, I think the tumbleweed is the decision to make. I feel like that's kind of a no-brainer, actually.
It says staying on course and hitting whatever it is can sometimes be safer. You don't want to drive off a cliff avoiding a skunk in the road. But there are exceptions to this guideline.
If you see a human being out in the road, that's a different story. Okay, you have got to try to avoid that. As you know,
if it's between another human being and careening off a cliff, I think I'm taking my chances with the lawman. Or potentially with some psychopath writing me notes that say, I know what you did last summer while researching tumbleweeds. This is like the trolley problem, hit the tumbleweed and break the windshield or run over the entire class of school children. Maybe it's like the Harvard trolley problem, right? That they use to like program AI-driven cars.
Once you hit them, they're probably going to be killed. Go in and hit your car up against something else, odds are you'll probably live. So no one's going to be killed.
So next time you see a tumbleweed blowing in the wind,
remember that could have been a group of dead school children. Make the correct choice. FYI, tumbleweeds are in a coma. When they get enough water, they start growing again, rooting wherever it stops. So what you're telling me is that in the summertime in Texas, if there's someone you really hate, instead of toilet papering or egging their house, you and your friends find a rogue farm of tumbleweeds and you herd them like cattle and you fly them like Kirby over to that person's house and then you sprinkle water all over them so the tumbleweeds take root all over that person's yard. That's what I'm hearing, right? There was a smoke alarm chirp in the phone call. There's no way.
Probably going to be killed. Go in and hit your car up against something else, odds are you'll probably live. So no one's going to be killed.
So next time you see it,
there was a smoke alarm beep. What the fuck? god, the ceiling bird! The ceiling bird craves sacrifice.
A tumbleweed blowing in the wind, just know it packs more of a punch than you may think.
You have got to go and be prepared for anything and everything that could possibly happen.
So,
And you know
that tumbleweed could rape and murder your father. You never know. Be prepared for the tumbleweed. Could be the first alarm. The guy in safety likes to live dangerously. True. Giant tumbleweeds are no joke. They can consume entire highways. Well, they're a joke until I find videos of it. So here's the new article. Danger is always lurking. Experts reveal what happens if you fall into an active volcano. As the world mourns the tragic death of tourist Juliana Marins, experts have revealed exactly what would happen if you fell into an active volcano. The plight of a young Brazilian tourist who fell into an active volcano in Indonesia, they really like that sentence, has raised questions about the dangers of trekking in the country, which is made up of some 17,000 islands and sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire. 26-year-old Julia Marins, a publicist and pole dancer. Wow! A pole dancer from Brazil? That's not a stereotype at all. From Rio de Janeiro, had been trying to summit Mount Rinjani, the second highest volcano in Indonesia, when she slipped and fell last week. While Rinjani is an active volcano, it is not currently erupting, and the last recorded eruption was in 2016, which caused a 2-kilometer ash plume. What the fuck is this video? What the fuck is this? I can't even... Okay, I was like, there's no way to pause it. Where's the fucking pause button? Way to fucking take me out of the article. Jesus Christ. Metal Murderer, thank you. You never heard of them and you're not mourning. Just wanted to clarify that. The article misspoke. This just happened a few days ago. Oh, you saw the man hanging from the electrical bucket? Okay. This video is why safety equipment is required when doing that shit. Yeah, right? Back to what was happening. Last recorded eruption is in 2016, which caused a 2-kilometer ash plume, but no fatalities. It has the potential to erupt periodically, unlike other volcanoes, which are extinct. But it is not under alert at the moment, meaning that an eruption is not considered imminent. So, as someone who is not, like, an earth biologist, I don't really know exactly how volcanoes work, but... every time a volcano gets explained, it makes me think of, like, volcanoes are the Earth's acne. Like, occasionally a giant spout will just form in the Earth, and that is, like, the acne pus bubble. And then it will fill with lava and start pluming, and that's when you know, like, you are past the stage that you're able to pop this bitch, and cream isn't gonna help you anymore. And then it actually starts explosioning and like leaking pus all over the Earth's face. And then after the pustule is finally emptied, however many years that takes, right? However many eruptions, it could be 1, it could be 2, it could be 10. The volcano, aka Earth Pimple, goes extinct and no longer causes any blemishes on the Earth's face. Well, thank you for listening to my TED Talk. Global health expert and medical doctor, my BGM is not on, at Yarsi University in Jakarta, Dr. Dickie Budeman explained to news.com.au that Rinjani is extremely high with deep ravines, extreme temperatures, and volcanic gases. If people fall while trekking, they can sustain multiple broken bones and traumatic head injuries, which are the most dangerous and can be fatal. Yeah, but she survived for 4 days, so I feel like that's not why she died. If people survive the initial fall, there are other risks, such as poisonous gases and extreme temperatures, which can cause asphyxia and hypothermia. And she still survived 4 days, and you sent people down to rescue her and then sent them back without her. Like, come on, man. When trekking on active volcanoes, there can be extremely high temperatures around thermal vents and poisonous gases, which are colorless and have no smell, and can poison you without you knowing, causing you to have breathing problems, asphyxiate, and die. Hypothermia can happen if victims fall into a crater lake and are in the water for a long time. But if they fall into an active crater, victims can also suffer from burns from piping hot steam or scorching hot surfaces. The volcano may freeze you to death, or it may fire you to death. Either way, you're just death now. Dr. Bootyman added that hikers should always follow the official paths and should not try to... His name is actually just Booty Man. I didn't realize that the first time I read his name. Dr. Booty Man is talking about a pole dancer from Brazil. Oh, God. Oh, okay. Delayed reaction. That's how you know I didn't get enough sleep, man. I'm not sharp today. No shot. It also seems like they lied to the family about giving her food and water. She probably died from dehydration and exposure. So it just seems like these people are shifting blame and lying. They were probably just like, yeah, we just don't want to go down there and rescue this woman. I was like, what if this wasn't an accidental fall? What if someone fucking pushed this woman, man? Dr. Bootyman said hikers should always follow the official paths and should not try to find alternative or illegal routes on mountainsides. They should also use local guides and follow their advice. He added that many foreign hikers in Indonesia were often ill-prepared as the local terrain was very different to their home countries, and that anyone planning to trek in Indonesia should make sure that they were physically fit enough before starting out. She was a fucking pole dancer, right? Like, thoughts on being a stripper aside, you have to be kind of fit to do pole dancing. Local guides from across Indonesia, including those familiar with Rinjani, told news.com.au that trekking in the country, which has some 130 active volcanoes, always carried some risk, and that survival rates could be low if climbers found themselves in trouble. Samsul, who like many Indonesians goes by one name, is a local guide in Banten province who has led tours around the Anak Krakatau. Krakatau? Is that the one that we call Krakatoa, or is Krakatoa a different one? And Ujung Kulon National Park. He explained the safety protocols and planning were the key to staying safe. When you do an activity like this, you need to be extra careful and always double check to ensure that all members of the trek are accounted for. All recreational places are dangerous, and in fact, the dangerous ones are the ones that present the most interesting challenges and are like magnets for trekkers. I love climbing Mount Kilimanjaro and getting assaulted by giant snakes that can run really fast, up to 40 kilometers per hour on their tails coming at you from the tall grass, and then also falling down glacier cliffs and losing a limb. That's an amazing time! Danger is always lurking, so you can't even be a little careless. A seasoned guide constantly needs to warn hikers about dangers along the climbing path, which can cause slipping and falling, and other hazards such as fallen trees, potential landslides, or loose rocks. He added that this advice did not just apply to mountains and volcanoes, but that visitors to Indonesia needed to be mindful of safety whether they were in mountainous areas, forests, and jungles, or the water. Another local climber, Ajo, who previously worked as a guide leading trekkers to Mount Merapi, which means Mountain of Fire, and is located in West Sumatra province, said that in his experience it was rare for anyone to survive a fall while trekking, especially if evacuation was not carried out immediately due to poor weather or remote terrain. Well, this woman survived for 4 days, so what the fuck were you guys doing? Usually, people have sustained injuries when they fall, which will affect their ability to survive. If you fall with inadequate protective equipment, it can be very dangerous to vulnerable parts of your body, like your head, and that makes the potential for death high. Trekking in Indonesia is inherently dangerous, however, the risk can be minimized with thorough preparation and knowledge of the dangers. He added that just some of the perils include extreme weather, difficult terrain, the risk of getting lost, injury, and wild animals. Well, that's a beautiful view. Besides that, the characteristics of each mountain are different, and sometimes that is what makes trekking dangerous and risky. Before trekking or climbing, we must know all about the specifics of the local terrain. Ahmad Siamsul Hadi, Sam Hyde can't keep getting away with it! A member of the parliament for Central Lombok told news.com.au that Rinjani offers some of the best trekking in Indonesia, and was no more hazardous than other mountains across the country as long as tourists took appropriate precautions. So this is why they had those legal threats on Fish Tank. This makes so much sense. There are, of course, challenges to trekking Rinjani, and you need to be physically fit and have a lot of stamina. The terrain is changeable and not on a straight line to the summit. The route takes you up and down on flat paths and then hiking trails and then downhill, so it takes a lot of energy. It is not recommended that you attempt to trek by yourself if you are a beginner, and it is not just a case of walking around a mountain for a few hours. You need to be much more prepared. He added that if things went wrong on a trek, it was often a race against time. People need to be rescued within 72 hours to have a chance of survival, especially if they do not have any food or water with them. The weather is also quite extreme on Rinjani due to its elevation of some 3,000 meters, and it is extremely cold. Hadi said, however, the Indonesian authorities were highly experienced in recovering stranded tourists, and that 3 separate helicopters had been dispatched to try and rescue Marins, with the governor of East Nusa Tenggara personally overseeing the mission in an effort to bring her home safely. We hope that everyone will be safe. We hope for the best. Fadi, who has worked as a porter on Rinjani for the past 3 years, carrying supplies and luggage for climbers, told news.com.au that all mountains are dangerous. The challenges on Rinjani are the same as other mountains in Indonesia, but the biggest problem is that climbers are often ill-prepared when they attempt to summit the mountain and then descend. Examples of this would not be bringing enough water or food, or not bringing essential medication with them. Who the fuck forgets essential medication? Fadi put survival rates of trekkers at about 50% if they survived a fall, especially if they were close to the summit of a mountain where terrifyingly steep ravines can be between 500 meters to 1 kilometer deep and covered in loose rocks. If a victim falls and gets snagged on a rock, there's a higher chance of survival, but if they just keep falling, the chance decreases. I feel like this was a very bad article where they just kept saying over and over again, it's the tourists' fault for being ill-prepared. We didn't do anything wrong. Don't look at us, sirs. What fucking timeline are we living in, man? Where the official Homeland Security of the United States Twitter account is tweeting out AI alligators in ice hats. I like how the first comment on this is, ¿Qué significado tiene? I don't know what that means. What meaning does it have? That actually makes it real fucking hilarious that the Homeland Security tweeted out alligators and ice hats for Alligator Alcatraz, and some actual Spanish-speaking person was like, what did he mean by this? The DHS post likely refers to Alligator Alcatraz, a new immigrant detention center in Florida's Everglades set to begin operations soon. The image of alligators wearing ice caps symbolizes the remote location surrounded by wildlife, which serves as a national security barrier. The facility, with an initial capacity for 1,000 people, aims to address the growing demand for detention but sparks controversy due to its environmental and cultural impact on indigenous lands. I mean, I don't see the alligators complaining, and they're the indigenous ones there, let's be honest. You never care what AI thinks. I just like how every time I open up a Twitter thread now, it's like 20 people asking Grok about the OP post, and then a mix of 20 more people posting either OnlyFans whores or like just completely unrelated videos. Like, you have to scroll so fucking far in current year to like get to any replies to the actual tweet at this point. It's like, look at what they have to do to mimic a fraction of our power. All right, like I can just look at you guys and go, chat, is this real? And I have 1 million people answer me in real time. They have to use Grok. Grok isn't even a person. Grok isn't even real. You guys are real. You know, there's this white paper that just came out about the first research on how using AI affects people. TLDR, it's making us stupid. Who knew that cognitive offloading to a machine would make us dumber? Is that why I can't do math? I relied too much on the calculator. Making the most wearable shirt design ever. Part 1. Muted all the way? Okay, we're muted. I don't even know what song that is, so it doesn't add anything. Daddy's home. He needs the back of the t-shirt with Tucker Carlson and the like, and he's gonna give you a vigorous spanking because you've been a bad girl. I still can't believe Tucker Carlson's bastard son didn't understand that reference when I made it multiple times on Side Scroller's King of the Couch. Gay men in Africa blame President Trump for their recent HIV diagnoses after he cut prevention funding. Gay men in Africa are blaming President Trump's decision to cut funding for HIV/AIDS prevention for their diagnosis of the virus. The administration's sweeping cuts to foreign aid have reduced access to medications like pre-exposure prophylaxis, or PrEP, which decreases the risk of contracting HIV by 99%. I don't know about you, but I feel like as a United States citizen, my tax dollars shouldn't be going to Africa HIV prevention. I feel like, you know, that's not my country. Your anal sex is not my problem. Do they consider that abstinence decreases their chance by 100%? How dare you be so homophobic as to suggest gay men don't have sex when they have AIDS? How dare you? The administration's sweeping cuts to foreign aid have reduced access to medications like pre-exposure prophylaxis, or PrEP, which decreases the risk of contracting HIV by 99%. Emmanuel Cherim, 25, a gay man in Nigeria, told Reuters that he tested positive for HIV 2 months after losing access to the US supplied drug. I blame myself. Taking care of myself is my first duty as a person. I equally blame the Trump administration because, you know, these things were available, and then, without prior notice, these things were cut off. Ekizona, 30, another gay man from Nigeria, told Reuters that he took PrEP pills daily for 3 years until he was told by a clinic worker that the drug was now only available to pregnant and lactating women. That is kind of insane. That is kind of insane. I just pray and wish that Trump actually changes his policy and everything comes back to normal so that the spread and transmission of the virus would be reduced. Trump issued an executive order on his first day in office that paused foreign development assistance for 90 days, while Secretary of State Marco Rubio signed a stop work order to employees of the State Department's Office of Foreign Assistance. Oh, they have pancake batter tents in Africa. That's funny. United to end AIDS in the midst of COVID-19. How old are these images? Biohazard. HIV vaccines for a trial in South Africa. The department oversees the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, and the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, a PEPFAR, which have seen drastic cuts since Trump took office. The administration has defended its position, arguing that other countries need to share the burden of providing aid. True, we are not the country's fucking bank, or the world's fucking bank, brother. I was like, it's insane that for some reason the U.S. is expected to just fund everything everywhere. During South African President Cyril Ramaphosa's White House visit, Trump acknowledged that the foreign aid cuts have been devastating. Hopefully a lot of people are going to start spending a lot of money, Trump added. I've talked to other nations and we want them to chip in and spend money too. And we've spent a lot, he continued. And it's big. It's a tremendous problem going on in many countries. A lot of problems going on. The United States always gets the request for money. Nobody else helps. Russell Vought, the director of the U.S. Office of Management and Budget, echoed Trump's stance during a congressional committee meeting in early June. He argued that African countries should take on the responsibility of fighting HIV and AIDS, alleviating the financial burden on the U.S. Is Russell Vought, is this his first time in any sort of cabinet meeting? He's asking the African countries to have some self-determination and take care of their own population instead of asking for more money from the United States that they're just going to launder and not give to their population anyway because they're all corrupt leaders. Does he understand how those countries work? Vought added that some of the nonprofits facilitating HIV prevention programs are not geared toward the viewpoints of the administration. The director's comments are in line with a waiver issued to PEPFAR programs on February 1st, allowing prevention programs to restart only for pregnant mothers. Vulnerable populations like members of the LGBTQIA+ community, sex workers, or injecting drug users weren't included in the prevention measures. PEPFAR grants often covered the cost of clinics supplying PrEP at public health centers for these populations, which have suffered closures due to decreased funding. I think what's interesting here that I should point out. I could be wrong. Maybe statistics have changed over the past couple of years, but when you have these people, right, like the LGBTQIA people, they're deciding to engage in sex workers are deciding to engage in sex, injecting drug users are deciding to engage in injecting themselves. Pregnant mothers, I feel like I vividly remember a statistic about how women tend to get HIV via rape. So it kind of makes sense that they're like, hey, we're going to take care of this population because they're actually in a high risk category for violent assault. PEPFAR grants often covered the cost of clinics supplying PrEP at public health centers for these populations, which have suffered closures due to decreased funding. A spokesperson for the State Department told Reuters that PEPFAR-funded programs would continue to be reviewed for assessment of programmatic efficiencies and consistency with United States foreign policy. Public health officials and activists fear that if Trump's hardline policy toward foreign aid stays consistent, HIV infections will continue in the region. Not my region, not my problem. I don't give a shit. I like Trump's hardline policy. Maybe their country should do something about their population having high rates of HIV. Maybe their country should take care of their population. What a fucking world, man. You thought US imperialism bad? We stop interfering with other countries and they cry instantly. Either take your non-imperialism or bend to the knee. Pretty much. If you want to suckle on the teat of like fucking US money, then you're gonna bend the knee to whatever the US fucking wants. And I don't want to hear any bitching about it. Linda Gale Becker, an HIV expert at the University of Cape Town, said that African countries may not cover the expense of supplying the drug, leaving a gap for more diagnosis. It's as predictable as if you take your eye off a smoldering bushfire and the wind is blowing. A bushfire will come back, she told Reuters. You know, civilization taught me that if you want technology that other countries have, you either have to research it yourself or steal it from them. They're not, like, occasionally you can have research agreements, right? But there's got to be something in it for both parties. It's got to, like, you know, the person you want the technology from, you have to be giving something to them as well. I don't feel like there's a trade deal that can be offered here. Countries like Malawi, Zimbabwe, and Mozambique were almost entirely dependent on US funding for HIV prevention measures, according to UNAIDS. I feel like Zimbabwe is dependent on a hell of a lot more than just HIV prevention measures. That is really funny that that's one of the ones mentioned. That's really fucking funny. Other countries like Ethiopia responded to the USAID funding cuts by introducing a new payroll tax to pay for HIV medication previously provided by US funding. See? Be like Ethiopia! Ethiopia was like, oh, fuck, our free shit ran out. Time to actually tax people. Medical advancements for HIV prevention and treatment have progressed significantly in recent years. However, UNAIDS projects that gaps created by a lack of funding could see steps backward. A Trump administration official told the Daily Mail that America remains the most generous country in the world, noting that PEPFAR programs continue to serve nearly 18 million people across over 40 countries. Both the United States and partner countries want every nation to be self-reliant in this effort to make lasting progress on addressing the HIV/AIDS epidemic and ensure improvements to public health are permanent, the official added. Yes, I agree. Everyone should be self-reliant in all efforts as much as they can be. The more you rely on other countries for shit, the more you are basically at their beck and call. Maybe the UN could pay for this? Oh wait, the US funds that too. True. EpiPens cost like $15 as far as you remember. God damn, that's cheap. Billions for 2 decades, still don't have functioning farms, functional EMS, and functioning legal system. Aren't there rolling blackouts in a ton of countries over there too? Like even South Africa? Have we considered annexing every territory that relies on us for aid? No, but that's not a bad idea, to be fair. Empire of Dust will never not be relevant, true, and very real.